This is Plant-Based Briefing. The hen is a symbol of motherhood for reasons we may have forgotten, by Karen Davis at United Poultry Concerns at upc-online.org. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson. This is the Plant-Based Podcast where I curate and narrate with permission a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan living in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. I'm pleased to have permission to share content from United Poultry Concerns. And today's episode is in honor of Mother's Day this coming weekend. So now let's get to today's Plant-Based Briefing. The hen is a symbol of motherhood for reasons we may have forgotten, so let us recall, by Karen Davis at upc-online.org. Quote, "Her love of her children definitely resembles my love of mine," unquote, Alice Walker. Quote, "The emphasis has been on smaller, more efficient, but lighter weight egg machines," unquote, American Poultry History. In our day, the hen has been degraded to an egg machine. In previous eras, she embodied the essence of motherhood. In the 1st century AD, the Greek historian Plutarch praised the many ways in which mother hens cherish and protect their chicks, quote, "drooping their wings for some to creep under, and receiving with joyous and affectionate clucks others that mount upon their backs or run up to them from every direction. And though they flee from dogs and snakes if they are frightened only for themselves, if their fright is for their children, they stand their ground and fight it out beyond their strength," unquote. The Renaissance writer Ulisse Aldrovandi described how at the first sign of a predator, mother hens will immediately gather their chicks, quote, "under the shadow of their wings, and with this covering they put up such a very fierce defense, striking fear into their opponent in the midst of a frightful clamor using both wings and beak. They would rather die for the chicks than seek safety in flight," unquote. Similarly, in collecting food, the mother hen allows her chicks to eat their fill before satisfying her own hunger. Thus, he said, mother hens present in every way, quote, "a noble example of love for their offspring," unquote. I saw this love in action when a hen named Eva jumped our sanctuary fence on a spring day and disappeared, only to return 3 weeks later in June with 8 fluffy chicks. Watching Eva with her tiny brood close behind her was like watching a family of wild birds whose dark and golden feathers blended perfectly with the woods and foliage they melted in and out of during the day. Periodically, Eva would squat down with her feathers puffed out, and her peeping chicks would all run under her wings for comfort and warmth. A few minutes later, the family was on the move again. One day, a large dog wandered in front of the magnolia tree where Eva and her chicks were foraging. With her wings outspread and curved menacingly toward the dog, she rushed at him over and over, cackling loudly, all the while continuing to push her chicks behind herself with her wings. The dog stood stock still before the excited mother hen and soon ambled away, but Eva maintained her aggressive posture, her sharp, repetitive cackles, and attentive lookout for several minutes after he was gone. Sitting on her nest, a mother hen carefully turns each of her eggs as often as 30 times a day, using her body, her feet, and her beak to move each egg precisely in order to maintain the proper temperature, moisture, ventilation, humidity, and position of the egg during the 3-week incubation period. Embryonic chicks respond to soothing sounds from the mother hen and to warning cries from the rooster. 2 or 3 days before the chicks are ready to hatch, they start peeping to notify their mother and siblings that they're ready to emerge from their shells and to draw her attention to any distress they're experiencing, such as cold or abnormal positioning. A communication network is established among the baby birds and between them and their mother, who must stay calm while all the peeping, sawing, and breaking of eggs goes on underneath her, as she meanwhile picks off tiny pieces of shell that may be sticking to her chicks and slays any ants that may dart in to scavenge. During all this time, as Paige Smith and Charles Daniel describe in the chicken book, quote, "the chorus of peeps goes on virtually uninterrupted, the unborn chicks peeping away, the newborn ones singing their less muffled song," unquote. During the first 4 to 8 weeks or so, the chicks stay close to their mother, gathering beneath her wings every night at dusk. Eventually, she flies up to her perch or a tree branch, indicating her sense that they and she are ready for independence. Whenever I tell people stories about chickens enjoying themselves, many become very sad. The pictures I'm showing them are also different from the ones they're used to seeing of chickens in a state of absolute misery. The New York Times restaurant critic William Grimes wrote of a beautiful black hen who entered his life unexpectedly one day, an apparent escapee from a poultry market in Queens. Quote, "I looked at the chicken endlessly and I wondered, what lay behind the veil of animal secrecy? Did she have a personality, for one thing?" Unquote. His curiosity is satisfied by close acquaintance with and observation of the endearing bird. By the end of his bittersweet book, My Fine Feathered Friend, he and his wife Nancy had grown to love the chicken. We have to start looking at chickens differently so that we may see them as Alice Walker described her encounter with a hen she watched crossing the road one day with 3 little chicks in Bali. In her essay, Why Did the Balinese Chicken Cross the Road? In Living by the Word, Walker writes, quote, "It is one of those moments that will be engraved on my brain forever, for I really saw her. She was small and gray, flecked with black, so were her chicks. She had a healthy red comb and quick light brown eyes. She was that proud, chunky chicken shape that makes one feel always that chickens, and hens especially, have personality and will. Her steps were neat and quick and authoritative, and though she never touched her chicks, it was obvious she was shepherding them along. She clucked impatiently when, our feet falling ever nearer, one of them, especially self-absorbed and perhaps hard-headed, ceased to respond," unquote. Let us, with equal justice, perceive chickens with envisioned eyes that pierce the veil of these birds' mechanization and apprehend the truth of who they are. In the Chicken Book, Paige Smith and Charles Daniel remind us most poignantly, quote, "As each chick emerges from its shell in the dark cave of feathers underneath its mother, it lies for a time like any newborn creature, exhausted, naked, and extremely vulnerable. And as the mother may be taken as the epitome of motherhood, so the newborn chick may be taken as an archetypal representative of babies of all species, human and animal alike, just brought into the world," unquote. This is what wings are for. You just listened to The Hen is a Symbol of Motherhood for Reasons We May Have Forgotten, So Let Us Recall by Karen Davis at United Poultry Concerns at upc-online.org. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson. Please encourage everyone you know to not eat eggs. The egg industry is so cruel, yes, even backyard eggs, because all of the males are slaughtered, usually macerated or suffocated, as soon as they're hatched. Not to mention the fact that the hens in the egg industry have been bred to lay an obscene amount of eggs, that it literally kills them. They lose so many nutrients, so much calcium. They live to just a fraction of their natural lifespan. But in the industry, they're usually killed even earlier than that because their egg production wanes at around a year, year and a half old, and they're killed then because they're of no use if they're not producing eggs for the humans, so they're killed for their flesh. Anyway, there's no such thing as ethical eggs, no such thing as humane eggs. So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.